Be careful who you listen to. That's the topic of conversation this week here on the podcast. Whether it's insurance only, financial advisor, or a broker, make sure you're getting credible information from the right source for your situation.
Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist, Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show.
Let's get into it this week here on the podcast, Philly. You know, it's one of those things where, look, most people are not trying to do a bad job by their clients in whatever form, of a financial professional you might be, whether you're insurance only, whether you're duly licensed like you are, whether you're, just a broker, whatever the case might be. But there are times when people maybe are listening to advice from someone who's maybe not always shooting for the best interest. Now, we don't know that that's the case, but you came across a situation here where you feel like the advice that has been given is not ideal for the client, but the client has kind of fallen for the sales pitch, if you will. So let's talk about that this week a little bit.
Yes. I've got a client that I've worked with for several years that developed a plan, Roth conversion strategies, kind of walked through this over the last, I think it's been almost 3 years now. 2.5, 3 years. And, we had a strategy in place. We've been doing the conversions and, walk through risk tolerance and annuity products in the beginning. It was something they were interested in. In their case, I didn't think that it was the right fit because of the Social Security income that they already had. And he had already purchased a fixed annuity that was kind of like a pension type income. So looking at their quote unquote guaranteed type income, they had a high level of guaranteed income once we got through the conversion process. So, they were in a really good position. We showed them annuity products in the beginning because that was an interest, but at the end of the day, they decided not to because of the other fixed type incomes they had. So we've been working through this process the last couple of years, and the wife in the story has, she was older. She had already seek the advice of another insurance agent that was a Medicare agent. And this gentleman was very flamboyant, he very outspoken, and, she always joked about how, very flavorful, always using colorful language and all this stuff, and, very kind of a pushy type of guy. But, she, I guess, liked that, in talking to him, and he had always referred to the stock market as the casino, oh, you got to get out of the casino. So he had been pushing on her for years to get out of the casino, and she had been okay with where we were at, and we talked about it, like I said, and showed products, and she had begun a little bit more nervous over the last year or so. And so we've had 2 or 3 meetings kind of walking through this again. He had come to her proposing an annuity product, and again, I showed her that product specifically and said, in your case, I don't think it's the right fit, and this is why. If you want to go to annuities, here's some other options. Again, we can do that. Why are you considering it? Oh, it's, I'm just really nervous with what's going on in the market. And we had, over these meetings, we had started to move their portfolios down to a more conservative stance because she was really nervous. The husband wasn't as concerned with it, but she was. So we did end up moving things down into more conservative portfolios. But at the end of the day, this other advisor talking in her ear, you got to get out of that casino, and ended up talking them into just moving everything out into annuities and just so many things that are not right for them in that scenario.
So they've taken all of their assets, put everything into just one account, one thing?
One product. As far as I can tell. I don't know. I didn't see the applications, but I know the company that it went to. There's so many things that are wrong with that scenario. Number one, because I'm an licensed insurance agent, right? So, I sell annuity products too. I'm duly licensed, right? So I can talk about insurance. I'm licensed to sell it. I'm also securities licensed. So, I can represent both sides. I understand both sides of it very well. On the annuity side, you've got to be very careful of how much of the client's money you're tying up into annuities because there's limitations, right? You've got restrictions on how much money you can take out without penalties. And there's significant penalties if you take it out early. Most of these insurance companies have as one of their requirements, this criteria you have to go through and tell them how much you have in annuities, their product or other annuities, because they want to make sure that you're not tying everything up. So they've moved everything into annuities, which not right from a liquidity standpoint. You got to be very careful there. In that product specifically, it didn't fit their situation. And, we talked about be careful who you listen to, because this advisor's or insurance agent's approach is kind of playing on the fears of this client, right? I mean, she was very, very fearful of the markets and what's going on. So,
well, Phil, let's touch on that for a second. Is this person insurance only? Are they duly licensed? Do you know?
I mean, as far as I know, I don't know. I didn't, I have not been able to find him and look him up, but I would assume he is, because when they started going through this, she logged online and sold everything so that he could transfer it over. And in our conversation, I got she told me, well, he is at the house, right? So he's there in their living room or kitchen walking through this, and I'm sure telling her, that, go ahead and sell these so we can it's got to be in cash to transfer it over. Which if he was securities licensed, you don't go about it that route. I mean, typically you would want to just transfer the account into whatever the custodian is you use. And then from there, you can move a portion of it or whatever whatever fits.
All right, Phil. So nothing wrong with being an insurance only person, but if annuities is where you make your bread and butter, that's what you're often pushing, right? So I would think that as the end user, we want to be careful that we're not, again, just using any one particular thing. Like we wouldn't have all our money in just gold or whatever, right? So you want to be careful that you're working with someone who understands your complete needs.
Right. I mean, and so this isn't the first time that he's come to them with, an annuity recommendation. And it's a couple of times. And over the years, as he's done that, we've kind of walked through that. Well, let me show you that product, because I've got I can represent the same company. So, I mean, I can show you the same product, right? And every time it's been the same exact company. And there's nothing wrong with this company. But when an advisor is only selling one product all the time, you've got to start to wonder, well, why? When you're talking to somebody for advice on finances, there's several things to look at. Number one, understand what they're licensed to talk about. Because everyone can talk about anything, right? The internet, go to the internet. I mean, it's full of information, advice, right? But are they licensed to talk about taxes? Because that was the other thing. All of a sudden, this advisor was like, oh, you shouldn't be doing conversions. So they're not going to do conversions. I mean, that was one of her other comments. I'm like, wait a minute. We've run the math. We had a plan. We've talked about it every year. And all of a sudden, you're not going to do conversions. So that's fine. Let's talk about why. And if you don't want to, it's not my plan. It's yours. But the way this all played out, I could just hear it, of the fear of what are you doing conversions for? Do you know the IRMA you're going to, this penalty you're going to have to pay for Medicare? Well, yeah, and we talked about that. That's just like paying taxes early. It's pay me now, pay me later. Understand all these pieces. Are they licensed to talk about taxes if they're talking about taxes? Are they licensed to talk about investment market-based products, stocks, bonds, ETFs, mutual funds? If they're telling you to get out of those, then that's advice, and they shouldn't be doing that unless they're licensed to talk about those. Are they licensed to talk about the insurance products, right? And are they representing more than one company? Whenever I'm representing an annuity, I like to give options and say, well, here's a couple of different companies we could use. I would recommend this. And yeah, we do have companies on the annuity side that we use on a regular basis because they fit. What we're trying to do, they fit. But that's why. It's not because, well, we get, higher commission with this or that. I mean, that's, just I'm doing what's in the best interest of the client at the end of the day.
When you're working with someone who maybe is suitable only, and they're offering you 3 different financial vehicles, they can kind of nudge you towards the one that provides them the best little benefit, right? A bigger commission, a trip, something like that, versus, the fiduciary standard, which, they have to do what is in your best interest at all times, right? So no matter what the incentive is for them, they have to provide you with the best information for your situation.
And the other thing that really stuck out to me with this is that the process that was used, right? Because it was my process in working with clients is understanding a fear. If they have a fear, let's talk about it, because that's real. I'm not trying to ignore it, but let's talk it through. Because a lot of times, we make emotional decisions as humans, but my job as an advisor, part of it is to put on that psychology hat and walk somebody through that so that they're not making what might end up being in the long run a wrong decision. So if you're working with somebody that they're always talking negative and fear and, the casino, like in this, it's always the casino versus their product. The casino versus our product is safety and security.
Well, look, we all know the market is volatile, right? But we do have to outpace inflation, Phil.
Well, the market's volatile depending on the level of risk you take, right? I mean, there are options, never 100% downside protection. Yeah, that is one of the upsides to annuity. But the piece that people don't realize, I think sometimes, is when they go to like an insurance product, it's like, oh, it's safety and security. Okay, well, all you've done is shift the risk. There's risk in everything, including an annuity in an insurance product. I mean, number one, you're backed by the claims paying ability. If you read that contract, it's backed by the claims paying ability of that company. So what happens if that company goes under? So invest in strong companies, number one. There's state guarantees that'll help back it if things go wrong, so understand that. But at the end of the day, the core behind most of the fixed annuity type products or fixed index products, they're investing in bonds. So you're just shifting markets is all you're doing, right? So you went out of a stock market, stocks and bonds, into just a straight bond.
I mean, Phil, isn't that the point, right? I mean, we harp on this all the time. That's the point of a balanced portfolio, a balanced plan is a little of this and a little of that, right? Makes a good soup.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, it has to come down to that comprehensive plan, right? Start with that. And I always tell clients the reason we do the planning first is it's like building a house. And we've talked about this analogy many times. We have to understand what that looks like first. Let's develop the blueprint. What income do you need? What are your expenses? What are your tax liabilities going to look like? Let's get all the pieces in place first. Now let's look at the investments you have, understanding risk and all that, and then make that work according to the plan. Unfortunately, on this side, they just looked at the investments and played on the fear. There was no plan, right? I mean, because the product that was ended up being sold was an income product. It's the only benefit is if you turn the guaranteed income on, or I shouldn't say the only, but the biggest benefit is going to be turning on that guaranteed income, which, yeah, I mean, that wasn't the problem long term. Unfortunately, a lot of times in scenarios like this, once we get through this volatility and the concerns and whatever, and they're 2-3 years down the road, I'm hoping they don't look back and think maybe I should have done something different, because the challenge now is you're locked into this 10-year product. So yeah, can you move? Oh yeah, you can move, but it's going to cost you 9%. It's a penalty to now get out of that. So, and meanwhile, the advisors walked away with their commission up front.
The Tax Smart Retiree is your comprehensive guide to mastering tax efficiency for a flourishing retirement. You will find indispensable advice and actionable strategies designed to enhance tax savings, maximize Social Security benefits, protect against market volatility, and develop a customized retirement plan. To get your free ebook, click the link in the show notes of today's episode and download your copy of the Tax Smart Retiree right now.
All right, well, that's going to do it this week for the program. This is Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts. Make sure you subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Ring the notification bell to catch future episodes and all that good jazz. We've got links for you in the show notes so you can reach out to Phil. And of course, the information's on the screen as well. But thank you so much for hanging out. So we'll see you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts.
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.